Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, which is a part of the Male Role Models in Media webinar series hosted by the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. Today's webinar is going to be geared towards grades 7 and 8 guys. So before we get started and hop right into the content, I think we should go around and introduce the facilitators that we have here today. I'll start with myself. My name is Lucas Schaefer, and I'm the MENding Program Coordinator at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. Alicia, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Fisher. I'm the Prevention Education Supervisor at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, and I work very closely with Lucas and the MENding and Young Men Leading Change program. And we have Holden.
I'm Holden Lowe's. I'm a recent joinee of the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, and I'm a second-year biology student at Trent University.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Holden, and thanks so much, Alicia. Let's get started.
Sorry,
No problem. Awesome. So we're going to be starting to talk about just what we're going to be talking about today in our session. So we're going to start off by asking and talking about who we are at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center and what we do. Afterwards, we're going to be talking about who and what are male role models. We're going to be talking about the male role models that we see in our everyday lives, in our personal relationships, and then comparing it and contrasting it to how we see them in media. And then we're going to be asking ourselves, who do we see as male role models in media? So who are the people that we most often see and who are some of the most popular ones? Afterwards, we're going to be asking ourselves, what is our relationship between these men? How are we connected to them? And what does that connection consist of? And then we're going to be asking ourselves what we can do to make sure we're engaging with media and these male role models in media in a healthy way, right? How can we maintain the awesome parts of this cool connection and drop the parts that starts to turn this connection a little bit sour or unhealthy? Awesome. So starting off, here at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, we are located in Peterborough at 150 King Street and have different relationships with, we extend our reach to Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, and Northumberland region, and we are connected with other centers there. And what we do is we support survivors who are impacted by sexual and gender-based violence, either recent or historical. And how we do that and how we support them is in multiple ways. We have individual and group counseling for youth and adult survivors and also their supporters. Something that we do at the center is something called psychoeducation, which is where we connect with the different loved ones of survivors and let them know about the kind of effects of facing sexual and gender-based violence. So talking about the impact of trauma in the body and letting the loved ones know how to best support their loved one who's faced this violence, right? We also do advocacy and accompaniment. So if you're a survivor and you're wondering what resources and different references that you can go to, what are your options? We have people at our center that can help you navigate those systems and get what you most want out of the different services. And then on the other side of things, we have public education and prevention education, where we go into the community, just like you're witnessing today, to talk about different ways of preventing and engaging and ending gender-based violence and sexual violence, right? And we do that by going to the community and talking about what is masculinity. We do that by talking about what is being an active bystander or an active intervener. How do we stop instances of gender-based violence when we see them? Yeah, we talk about that with university students, high school students, grade school students, and people in the workforce. And connected with that prevention education and public education piece is the MENding Program. So the MENding Program is a male ally leadership program that we have at the center that engages men in ending gender-based violence. How we do that is we talk about what gender-based violence is and what it looks like in our society. And we talk about what it means to be a man and what are ways in which how it means to be a man means to do these violent things, right? And what can we do about that? We also talk about what is consent and what are healthy relationships. And we also talk about what it means to be an active intervener. So how can we take this knowledge that we've learned and bring it into our everyday lives? At the end of the program, we teach the participants how to teach the program. It's pretty awesome. Holden was a member of our most recent cohort, and we're so happy that he's here today.
And we talked to the OHL teams.
Yes, absolutely. We also engage with different hockey teams in Peterborough and also in other places too. It's awesome. We also have a crisis text line, phone line, and web chat available. More information is going to be provided for those at the end of this session. So we'll continue on. Awesome. So just like Alicia was talking about, we also have a Young Men Leading Change program, which is similar to our MENding program, but is specifically for racialized and newcomer men. So if you're a racialized and newcomer man or no one, and you want to get involved with myself and also our awesome youth facilitator, Takoni, let me know by sending me an email at lshaver@kawarthasac.ca. Awesome. So we're going to be starting off this conversation by asking ourselves, what is a role model? And who are our male role models in our lives? Where are the men that we look up to depicted in our lives? So this, if you're an educator, this is a time where you're able to pause the webinar and ask the men in your room, what is a male role model, and who are the male role models we look up to? So the long and short of it is that being like a male role model or a role model in general is someone you look up to be, is someone you look up to and aspire to be, someone who you think is a good leader. When I was growing up, and even like a little bit now, I always looked up to comedian and actor Jim Carrey. I thought he was really funny, and that's something that I really wanted to replicate in myself when I was growing up. I really like it. Holden, do you have someone that you look up to in your life that kind of fits that description?
Yeah, on the sports side of my life, I guess growing up and during the prime of my hockey career, I really looked up to Sidney Crosby because I guess he's a very successful hockey player. He's an excellent leader. He's humble. He has all these attributes and qualities that are thought to be good, and I guess that I just wanted to fulfill those in myself.
Totally, that's awesome. And how did you like become aware of Sidney Crosby, and how did you learn all these different like aspects that you wanted to see in yourself?
I think that like social media has a huge part of it, team, like games and stuff, and even just in the dressing room talking, you see him playing games on TV. Even when I'd go into Tim Hortons to get a donut, you'd see his face on the posters and the calendars. He was just everywhere, and if you're into that sort of sports environment, it's hard to miss him.
Totally, right? Yeah, he's just like a kind of part of the culture, right? If you're engaging in this community, you're going to know about Sidney Crosby, right? And in that way, we're really like connected to these people, right? And when we talk about like relationships today, I want us to keep in mind that a relationship is the way in which two or more concepts, people, or objects, mostly people in this case, are connected or in the state of being connected. So how are we connected to these people, right? And the way that we're connected to them is that we look up to them and we want to be like them. So keeping that in mind as we're continuing on. Yeah, where do we learn and meet about, what do we meet and learn about these role models, right? And we typically think of like two ways, right? These are the people in our family, our friends, our classmates, our sports teammates, right? That we interact with and we learn. They could be our coaches, they can be our dads, our uncles, our grandfathers, right? And we look up to them because we have lots of personal relationships with them, right? And maybe in some cases we don't want to be exactly like them, but they have aspects that we want to see in ourselves as well, right? And then on the other side of things, something that Holden was kind of talking about is we see a lot of, we're informed about these men through social media, right? So Instagram and TikTok, and maybe we see some male role models in video games or in some of our movies, right? I was mentioning I like and looked up to Jim Carrey, and he was in a lot of movies that I was watching when I was growing up, right? Maybe they're your favorite music artist, and you're someone who is an aspiring musician and really like love the way that they're creative, right? So there's just a plethora of ways in which we can meet and learn about these male role models, but we're going to be focusing a lot more on this media aspect. How do we meet and learn about these male role models through media today? So to dive into that conversation, we're going to ask ourselves, what male role models do we see in media? Who are the men we look up to in media? If you're an educator, this is a time where you're able to pause the webinar and ask the men in your group, who are the male role models that we see in media? Awesome. So the first thing that you probably thought of were different superheroes. We get this a lot, right? It could be looking at Tony Stark and saying, wow, that's someone with so much like wealth and power, and he's able to use that to lead a team and create like agency and connect all these different superheroes together. Or maybe it's Thor, right? Someone who's like literally like a demigod coming down and using his power to fight evil and do the good thing, right? I wasn't the most engaged with different superheroes growing up, but maybe Holden is. Holden, were there any superheroes that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Yeah, I definitely grew up in a Marvel family, so I think Captain America was definitely my superhero that I looked up to. Maybe because I haven't really thought about it, but maybe because he was relatable in a sense, because a lot of these other guys have these superpowers, like the Hulk grows like a million times his size.
Mhm.
But Captain America, in a sense, is just a human being like the rest of us, but he is strong-willed. He's a good leader, and when other people, like other superheroes, had problems, a lot of the time they went to Captain America. So I think that there was that sense of wanting to feel needed that came with that too.
Totally, right? And we felt and you felt connected to Captain America because he seemed like someone you could be, right? Too, and that's an awesome component as well. Um, and going even further into media, right? We can have ways of connecting with these figures, right? These like superheroes that aren't necessarily real people, but are real to us in the sense that like we can replicate what we see and what we see the good in them, right? But then on the other hand, we have people in media who are real people, right? Left to right, we have PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Logan Paul, and KSI, right? These are people on YouTube with millions of followers. PewDiePie on the far left is the second most popular YouTube channel in internationally, right? He's known internationally. Everybody knows PewDiePie, right? And when we start to look at these numbers, like that's a lot. That's a lot of people, right? And we're going to be talking about what those kind of numbers mean in regards to like how we can interact with that many people a little bit later. But moving on, we're going to be talking about different musicians, right? From left to right, we have Harry Styles, Bruno Mars, Tyler the Creator, Post Malone, and Drake, right? They also have millions, millions of followers on Twitter, right? And if you're not engaging on Twitter a lot or don't look up to and aren't familiar with different musicians, we also have people who are in sports. Um, awesome, yeah. So we have from left to right, we have Cristiano Ronaldo, we have Sidney Crosby, we have Dwayne The Rock Johnson, we have LeBron James, and we have Leo Messi, right? These folks have
You got to say LeBron James's name properly. You can't.
LeBron James.
There you go.
Thanks so much, Alicia. Like these men have a huge following, right? And what that means is that a lot of people probably see something that they want to replicate in themselves from them, right? They see them as being great leaders or great players, and that's something that they want to see in themselves as well. Yeah. But when we look at these numbers and we ask ourselves how many meaningful relationships we can have, we start to see a conflict, right? As much as we want to, we can't be everyone's friend. And I could imagine that it could be really hard to keep up with all of our followers if we had millions or hundreds of thousands of different followers following us, right? Or wanting to connect with us in ways to become like the person that they want to be. Like that's a lot of people, right? And what psychologists have noticed is that there seems to be a suggestive and varying cognitive limit to the number of people who can maintain stable social relationships. So just what a stable social relationship means is just like someone that you're able to be connected with, you know a lot about, are able to remember them and know how they interact with other people, right? The general rule is that you have 5 close loved ones. So this could be like family members, really, really close, and like family members, good friends, classmates, people at your school. The golden number that psychologists have suggested is that you can maintain 150 meaningful relationships in your life. But we are not seeing 150 followers or subscribers, right? We're seeing hundreds of millions of like followers and subscribers, right? So what that's telling us is that these relationships are a lot different than the ones that we're going to be having in everyday life and having physically, or knowing someone on a personal level, right? They're different. They're a different way of connecting. So we're going to be asking ourselves a little bit more about what this connection feels like. And the long and short of it is that it feels really good, right? When we watch, read, and engage with the different forms of media that depict like who we want to be and who they are, we start to feel like we know them and we get them, and then we're close to them, right? And I think one of the most awesome parts of looking up to male role models and being connected with them is that you're not only connected to them alone, right? You're connected to them with a bunch of other people. So it feels like that we're part of a community when we follow someone and are interested in them. Do any of our other facilitators want to talk about what it feels like to be in a relationship with these kinds of men? Maybe Holden, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that it just makes you feel important and wanted, because so many other people are likely looking up to the same person you are, in the case of celebrities anyway. That, like, even if you look at the image on the slide here, like that one girl getting that picture feels like she's the only girl in the world, so to speak. But yeah, you just feel like you're wanted and welcome, and it's a very satisfying feeling.
Totally. Yeah. Awesome. Alicia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. You know, when you have millions of people to choose from, and this person decides to like, comment, or react to your comment, video, post, whatever, like, you just feel so special. And it's not even special to just that person. It's also like their entire fan base, right? So it's just a lot of people like really just crave that connection, especially in the virtual space that we're all in right now.
Yeah, well said. Thank you so much, Alicia. So now we're going to be contrasting how we feel like in these connections, in these relationships with these male role models, to what it looks like, right? And this is the disappointing and a little bit upsetting part, right? Is because while it feels like we're getting to know someone on a personal level and really getting to know them either by watching a lot of their movies or listening to all their music or all their interviews, this kind of relationship and way of connecting with the content creator is ultimately one-sided. That's tough. The content creator doesn't know you and can't really get to know you, right? Because there's just so many, right? There's just so many people to get to know. And when we talk about that cognitive limit, we don't have that capacity memory-wise and like energy-wise to just maintain all those different meaningful relationships, right? So and something that Alicia was talking about is that while content creators can often encourage fan interaction, right, by commenting on stuff and then replying to those comments, right, a majority of those interactions are still kind of like one-sided, or maybe a different word that we can use is like superficial, right? You're talking about this thing that they've shared with you, right? But you're not really getting to know them, right? So it's a way that we can get connected and that we can feel excited, but where we start to the feeling is different from what it looks like is we start to think that like we're getting to know them, or that they're starting to get to know us when they're interacting. Awesome. Hold on, do you have anything to say to this? Or maybe Alicia would like to go first.
I was going to say, this is what it looks like.
A perfect demonstration. Thanks, Alicia. Hold on, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, if you put yourself in a creator's shoes, I guess, their relationship with you, I guess, is what makes them successful in a sense. So it's often a sense of obligation. Like if you look at the people with all those subscribers and stuff, the more they have, the better they do. So they're all, I guess if you were in their shoes, you'd want to put the minimum effort to get the maximum results. So it's important to think about that too.
That is awesome. And we're definitely going to be touching on that a little bit more in a couple slides. So thank you so much for bringing that into the space, Holden. Yeah, now we're going to be starting to talk about like the ways in which these awesome connections and their benefits can become a little bit sour and become a little bit unhealthy, right? So this is a big psychology word that's really, really cool. Parasocial relationships, which could be described with these relationships, are a one-sided relationship where one person extends emotional energy, interest in time, And the other party, the persona or content creator in this case, is completely unaware of the other's existence, right? And that's really frustrating. When we're feeling like we're putting a lot into a connection or relationship and we're not getting a lot back, we can start to tell ourselves that we want that interaction, right? We're kind of owed that. And that's where it can start to become a little bit unhealthy. Another way in which that can become unhealthy is just like the way that we're comparing ourselves to these male role models, right? When I was growing up, I would start comparing myself to if I was like growing up like Jim Carrey grew up. I started to learn that like he would spend time at the front of the class, at the end of the class, and tell jokes, right? So that's something that I was trying to do, but wasn't being funny. So I was starting to compare myself to someone who might have not been like a realistic person to compare myself to, right? Do some of our other facilitators want to talk about the ways in which these relationships can become unhealthy? Holden, do you have anything to say to this?
If you were to think of it as even just on a you and your friend sitting beside you in the classroom sort of environment, if you're putting more effort into the relationship than they are, and it's blatantly obvious, and you just feel like you're the one that's trying to make it work, whereas they just really don't care, and it's becoming evident, it can be very frustrating and take a bit of a toll on your body mentally. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
when it becomes unhealthy, is when you're putting a lot more effort than the other person and you can feel it.
Thank you. Alicia, do you have anything to say before we move on?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, especially with like these media relationships, we tend to look at this person in the image that they are representing to us, right? So we think of like Sidney Crosby, we think of like this really great athlete that's giving back to was it like Timbits hockey and stuff like that. He has his foundation that he has. And so we see this kind of like one-sided view of this individual, and we become very attached to that one-sided view. But I have a feeling that Sidney Crosby just likes to sit around and watch some TV as well. So we have this one-sided view that can kind of paint this unrealistic picture as to how we should be, right? I think about, Lucas, what you just said, like how Jim Carrey makes these really funny jokes, and then you're trying to make jokes, and people are probably telling you to sit down and be quiet, right? And
Yes.
so it creates this really unhealthy, like, well, if he can do it, I can be able to do it, and people love him and they hate me, so what's wrong with me? And so you just start to have this self-doubt that just continues to kind of spiral.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it. Thank you so much, Alicia. And another way that these relationships can become unhealthy is I think Holden was doing a really great job of kind of dovetailing into this conversation, right? Some content creators may take advantage of their level of influence, right? These people are very powerful and oftentimes like really rich and wealthy, right? And they could use that influence to share really harmful ideas or deliberately share mistruths and tend to scare, mislead, and motivate their audience to do or support certain things, right? This is in turn just like using their power for personal gain, right? And some of the ways that this can kind of like look like is being bigoted under the guise of humor, right? So like we can see people knowing that their fans are going to be looking at them with an uncritical eye and very supportive eye, doing whatever they want, and then just passing it off as a joke, right? Knowing that people are going to come to their side and protect them because they have this kind of personal relationship with them, right? And they really encourage these unhealthy relationships with them. They could tell you that like I'm your friend, right? And really encourage that kind of connection that benefits them but doesn't benefit you. Do anything else? Does anyone else want to contribute to this or say something? Maybe Holden, do you have something to say?
Yeah, like an example, I guess, would be somebody like offering up a giveaway. Like you see these big time people with all these subscribers saying, here is 100,000 to the follower that wins the money, but you have to do XXX. Like you have to follow everyone I'm following, repost, tag 3 friends, blah, blah, blah. And that's their way of benefiting from your wanting to build that relationship, I guess.
100%, right? I think something that you were hitting on before was that they benefit from having these giant numbers, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be encouraging that kinds of interaction. Yeah, 100%. Wow, awesome. Alicia, do you have anything to say before we move on?
Yeah, I think more about the lines of social media. For if you are on social media and you are creating an audience, it is your job to create an audience. Like, it is your job to tell people, like, comment, subscribe, right? Like that. I say that with every video. And that's why there's like just so many like live videos of be like, you got to comment, you got to comment. And so it kind of creates this just like this need to want to receive that acknowledgement. And to do that, you have to perform unhealthy behaviors like continuously like and comment. And then of course you are on your phone and you get that little ping that this person has posted a video or that they're going live. And so what does it do? It makes you go onto your phone and go and watch that. And it takes you away from the world around you. And so these kind of compulsive behaviors of like, yeah, I got to see what they're doing or else I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss something. And so that's where, again, it just that downward spiral of like, okay, I need to defend this person. Like, so what if Logan Paul drove a car into a pool? Like, that's just his life. And hey, if you're going to be upset about that, well, that's on you. Like, that's your problem. And so it just becomes also this unnecessary need because you've put out so much effort and energy into commenting and liking and sharing to your friends that like, it's like, no wonder you're going to want to defend this person, right? Because you have put out so much to support this person.
Wow. Excellently said. Thank you so much, Alicia. So we've talked a lot about the drawbacks of these kinds of relationships, but I want to clarify something. Having these relationships is okay. And like in the kind of age that we're living in, especially now where we're going to be spending a lot of time online, they're almost inevitable. But we just have to engage in them in a healthy way, right? So let's talk about what are the ways that we can take the pros of these kinds of connections or relationships and avoid some of the drawbacks, right? Let's talk about it. If you're an educator, this is a time where you can pause the webinar and ask the men in your classroom, what can we do to engage in these relationships in a healthy way? What are ways we can get the benefits without getting those drawbacks? Awesome. So the kind of just the long and short of it is that we just have to be conscious. We have to be conscious consumers of content, right? We have to be mindful while we're enjoying the things that we enjoy and watching and participating in the media that these creators and male role models that we look up to make for us, right? And making sure that we spend time also like watching this and learning about them with maintaining our other personal relationships, right? Not kind of focusing on this one thing, right? Kind of avoiding that obsessive or like compulsive behavior that Alicia was talking about before. And a good thing to keep in mind is just reminding ourselves that we don't know this person personally, right? This is an image that someone has made for themselves and also for us to enjoy. They have a lot of executive control over what gets shared of them, right? But in everyday life, we don't get to have that kind of control, right? So keeping this in mind, that there's a lot of ways in which they can curate their content for you and for themselves as well. Awesome. What do our facilitators say about this? Holden, do you have something to say about how we can engage in these relationships in a healthy way?
Yeah, just like to build off what Alicia said earlier, if you think about it as you and your classmates, and a lot of them only know you for the you at school. They don't know what you do at home or what you do after school and everything else. So it's important to remember that it's the same with these role models we have a lot of the time, and that we only see them when they're at work and when they're doing what they do best, I guess, but we don't see them behind the camera and behind the scenes and doing things that everyday people do, just like you and me. So
totally. Thanks so much, Holden. Alicia, do you want to say anything before we move on?
Yeah, being a conscious consumer is really, really hard on our phones. And it's not until we like download an app or get into the backlog of Facebook where we start to realize how much time we are spending on these apps on our phone. Like, and once we find out that time, it's like, holy moly, like we're spending a lot of time on our phones, but then how do we break that behavior, especially when we're getting those notifications, right? So it's one thing to be conscious, it's another thing to change the behavior.
Thank you so much for that reminder, Alicia. Awesome. And we talked about a lot of what we can do on the follower end and fan end of things, but we also have to keep in mind that these content creators and these media figures are able to encourage, like they have a responsibility and are able to encourage the kind of relationships that keep the pros and without the drawbacks, right? So something that we can do is that we can follow and celebrate when content creators draw boundaries with their audiences, right? And something that we can do in response to that is respect those boundaries. I'm going to be talking about this and this on this channel, and I don't want to talk about this and this thing. or I don't want people who talk about these things to go on my channel and be in my community, right? These are ways in which that content creators can draw boundaries to have a control over like the kinds of relationships they have with their viewers, right? And that's awesome because that's someone being really honest and upfront with who they are to these people, okay? Awesome. What else do we think that these content creators can be responsible for? What are ways that they can encourage healthy relationships? Holden, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, just maintaining equality in a sense, I guess, throughout your fan base, although it is hard. Just sort of trying to appeal to the greater audience, I guess, would, instead of maybe creating jealousy or tension within your followers, seeing that you're responding to them and not to you, can sort of avoid that jealousy and maybe help you grow as a creator, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much, Holden. Awesome. Alicia, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think as a content creator, you need to be mindful of the content that you're creating, right? And that content, those videos, those images that you're creating, can have an impact on people, right? And so, if you're going to go into a place where a lot of people have taken their lives just for clout and for attention, you have to recognize that that's going to have an impact on people, because whether they know someone personally, or like, through a friend of a friend kind of thing, who has taken their life because of mental health issues, but yet you've got someone who's like making fun of it, that can really have a negative impact on someone. So we have to be conscious that trauma is part of so many people's lives. We've spoken to so many students across our counties that have experienced this stuff, and they haven't told anyone about it. And so, yeah, they need to be conscious of the content that they're creating. And what they can do is that, like, obviously, a lot of these creators in the media are obtaining like a really good income, right? You think about how much Sidney Crosby is making, or how much PewDiePie makes for every video that they create, right? How are you giving back to the community? Obviously, we need money to survive, but if you are taking a car and throwing it into a pool, where someone could actually have used that car to, I don't know, get a job, have work, travel to school, travel to see a parent that's in the hospital, like that's kind of like irresponsible in a way, right? So how are you giving back to your community? How are you giving back to those who are less fortunate?
Well said, Alicia.
I'm not saying that Sidney Crosby's not doing it. He has a foundation. He has the Tibbetts hockey that he does. But it's just like, as when you have that level of success, there are people that are following you and watching you. And so how are you giving back?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alicia. And in that case, like Sidney Crosby can be a role model for other male role models, right? This is what it looks like to give back. Yeah, thank you. Wow, so we talked about a lot today. So let's go over what we learned and just recap on things. Awesome. So we talked about who and what male role models are, what a relationship with them kind of looks like, right? We also talked about where we see these men in media and who are some of the most popular ones. We talked about different musicians, athletes, and like YouTube creators, right? And we saw how big their fan base is and contrasted that with how many meaningful relationships we have the capacity of maintaining, right? And then we talked about what we feel in these relationships with our male role models, and learned that it can be different than the way they actually are, right? The way we feel in these relationships is often different than the way they actually look, right? So being conscious of that. We also talked about having men, we talked about that having men you look up to is awesome, right? And that enjoying their content is great, right? We want to enjoy things. We want to spend time listening to music, watching games, and learning from these men. But it's always important to stay critical, right? Be conscious consumers. And
focus as well on your physical relationships too. Is it balanced, or are the scales more toward the media one, right? So yeah. Sorry, I don't know, Holden, if you had anything to add.
No, maybe just like a lot of these people I didn't start at the top. They were everyday people just like you and me. And there's that part of it, that it's important to stay true to yourself and to be able to differentiate between the qualities you admire and the physical person themselves. So strive for those good qualities and not to actually be that person.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Alicia, and thank you, Holden. So if you're an educator watching this, please fill out a survey. We want to make sure that this male role models in media webinar is as awesome as it can be. We need your feedback, so let us know. And the 24/7 crisis support lines, the text line, the phone line, and the online web chat are depicted on the screen. We also have all the numbers listed at kawarthasexualassaultcenter.com. So know that this is a resource available to you. And we want to thank you so much for joining us on this awesome webinar. We had great discussions, and I want to implore our other facilitators if they have any last words they want to share before closing. Alicia, would you like to speak to this first?
Sure, yeah. You know, role models are great to have, and I think Holden really hit the nail on the head that it's important to you know, highlight the people that are in our everyday lives to you know, understand like the qualities of that person rather than actually becoming that person. And it's okay to have good qualities about yourself and bad qualities about yourself, and or about the people that you look up to rather, and try to emulate that within yourself. What are some of the good qualities that you can take on? I think it's in Spider-Man where they say great power comes great responsibility. And so it's really important that these content creators and people in the media are giving back, are being responsible people, and then you can be a responsible consumer of that media and material.
Awesome. Well said, Alicia. Thank you. Holden, do you have any last words?
I think I'm good. I'm just glad that I was able to be here.
Oh, thank you so much, Holden. We're super glad that you're here as well. So, and we're also glad that you're here watching us. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope that you and your class have an awesome day. Take care.